So the work from home stuff was heating up last week, especially for all the Bay Area stuff. There was a lot of takes on this, and the crazy one to me was, so all these companies sort of started following. Twitter said they're going to allow work from home permanently. Square, we talked about this. Now Facebook said they're going to, Mark Zuckerberg said he predicts 50% of the company's employees could be working remotely within the next 5 to 10 years. Here was the twist from Zuckerberg. They're talking about adjusting your salary based on where you live. So if you move somewhere else, you're not going to be paid the same thing as you would in San Francisco if you lived in Detroit or whatever, because the cost of living is lower there. Do you think that makes sense, or is that just this big corporation trying to figure out a way to save money?
I don't know. I need to think about this.
I can't.
I assume you've thought about this. Where do you fall?
First of all, I don't know how they're going to figure it out, because even in a different city, standard of living is different depending on what neighborhood you live in, potentially. So there's a lot of differences. I don't know how they do an exact ratio. Do they take the median home price where you live? It seems like it's hard. And I think if I was one of these people who are staying in San Francisco, I would be using this as a point to say, like, okay, you need to pay me more. I would be using this as a negotiating tool. But here's the other jumping off point a lot of people made, and Coinbase said they were going to do the same thing. It's surprising that it took something like this for tech companies to offer remote working, because you would think they would be the ones that would have the easiest time figuring this out and doing this, because they're the ones who invented all this stuff, basically. But someone said, okay, this guy tweeted, Michael Boswell, this was flying around retweets and such. He said, to all the engineers in the U.S. celebrating work from anywhere, you are losing leverage. Do you have any idea how many engineers in India are patiently waiting to do the job you have at a fraction of the cost? And if you think this isn't an economic decision by CEOs, you're crazy. Here's the thing. I think the leverage thing is different from people who currently work there versus people who are maybe applying to work there. So if you work there, I think you have a lot of leverage because people already know what you can do in terms of setting the rate that you make and then working from somewhere else. But if you're coming in as a new person and you're saying, yeah, I want to live in North Dakota, but I'm working for this company in San Francisco, then why should you have more leverage than someone in India who'll do it for a fraction of the price? So I actually think this kind of makes sense in some ways, but so you better hope that you already have a tie to the company and can show your value before coming in and just say, I'm not going to see you guys very much.
If I was a young person, I would be very scared of the work from home idea. Like, I'm not bullish on that, because one of the benefits of being in an office is interpersonal relationships, and just how you interact with people is enormous. I don't understand how people advance working from home.
And especially if you're working for a big corporation, so much of that, how you move up, is all politics.
Right.
And relationship building. Yeah.
And you can't do that on Zoom.
It's not just how productive you are and do you get your job done. That doesn't make sense to a lot of corporations. That's not how people get in the top jobs. I'm sure there's a lot of people where you understand what they know, and you go, this person is not the smartest person in the organization, but they're the best salesperson, or they know they know who to step on the way up or whatever. So it's not always about just being the best, most productive person. But maybe for some people who are fine not taking that track and don't want to get political, and they're just happy at their station in life, then they say, you know what, if people are passing me up for a promotion, but I'm able to have a higher quality of life, then maybe that's
right. Yeah.
That's part of it.
For people that are already established in their career, it makes a lot of sense. But for younger people, I think I'd be scared of this. And let me ask you a question. So fast forward 5 years, we're completely past the virus. We've had a chance to return somewhat to normalcy. Do you think that the office is 97% of what it was? Or do you think that 20% of the population is going to be working from home? Because I think that people are going to return to the office eventually.
So I have some friends here in West Michigan, and a lot of these companies have been here forever. They're these stodgy old companies, and they want nothing to do with the work from home stuff. And they said that they've been driven into it kicking and screaming, and they didn't want it, and they're probably going to just go back to normal.
All right, but this is your Michigan bubble. Step outside that for a second.
Okay, but don't you think?
But that was a joke.
Yeah, but don't you think the New York thing too? Like, there's something about being in the city that people just love, and a lot of people, not just the companies themselves, but don't you think a lot of workers are just going to want to continue to go in the city as well?
Well, if you're not going to do that, then what is the point of living in New York?
Exactly. Right. So let's say you personally, Ritholtz Wealth Management announces, you know what? We don't need that office anymore. Do you move somewhere else? Potentially? Wouldn't you?
No, I mean, no, only because of family. Listen,
you have roots and stuff, but
I'm not dying to live on Long Island. That's not a choice anybody makes.
But I do. Yeah, I agree. For the young people, this may sound like a good thing. It's probably not. This is a good thing for people who are already middle or upper management and have more flexibility, and maybe they have kids or whatever, and they can work around their schedules a little easier because they already have some responsibility and seniority. But if you're coming in at the bottom of the totem pole,
it's tough.
It's really tough, and I think you want to be in the office to move up a little bit, especially if you're in a big corporation. That's how you learn, and you can get to understand how different departments work, and understand how people's minds work and how communication works. And yeah,
for me personally, I'm not going back into the office for a while. I don't know if it's until there's a vaccine. We'll see. But I have zero desire to get on mass transit right now.
Here's the other thing that is probably a little underreported in all this. This all happened in the blink of an eye. There was no planning for this. There was no let's take 5 or 7 weeks and do some studies on this and figure out what's the best way to do this. People who are working from home and are doing so potentially with kids that they're trying to homeschool as well, it's pretty amazing that this stuff has continued to just function. And maybe part of this is just when someone has the adrenaline and they lift the car off the person who got in an accident, and then eventually it's going to wear off. So we did this huge sprint for 3 months, and then now people are probably finally going to start wearing out, and they can't do it forever. But it is kind of crazy that all these companies were able to do this. Just everything stopped on a dime, and it was like, all right, you're working from home now. You're working from home. Oh, you have your kids as well. That all these companies were able to do this. And I'm sure obviously there have been challenges for people, but things have still continued to function in a lot of ways. And so I think in a lot of ways, it shows that this stuff can be done even if you're not really planning for it and thinking about it. But the problem with that is there's probably going to be companies who take it too far, right? And they extrapolate stuff that's going on now in terms of productivity with what is reasonable for the future. So yeah, it is bizarre, but I do think people like Zuckerberg are probably looking to save some money right now. I think they're using this as an opportunity. We've all spent all this time now, and for the last 20 to 30 years, behavioral finance has become this thing that is just the cornerstone for a lot of people. And you think you understand human nature, that's the one constant, and behavior should be the one thing that is kind of, especially in the crowd and herd mentality, you should be able to put your finger on and guess, okay, if this happens, the crowd is going to do this. This is the exact opposite. The market got slaughtered, the worst 30%, the fastest, sharpest 30% bear market ever, and people are diving back into the market. Okay, so I gave some thoughts for why that is. Maybe you can give me some of your thoughts on this. Why are we seeing bubble-like behavior in a depression?
Well, there are a few factors at play. I think first and foremost, it's the lockdown. People have nothing to do, right? That's one. Two is you can't discount how influential Dave Portnoy is. He has an army of people. 3, free trades, free commissions. That's enormous. 4 is the stimulus checks. So I think that this was the perfect storm for brokerage accounts. And I think I'm going to write something about this. I think that behavioral finance is one of the worst. Discovering behavioral finance is one of the worst things that can happen to an investor.
Probably for someone who doesn't have context around it. It probably is. But
you just real quick, and we don't have to spend too much time on this, but you read whoever, Kahneman, Dan Ariely, whoever it is, and your head explodes, right? You see the light. You think this makes so much sense, and then you think you're an expert.
All right. You read the first book you read, it feels like your brain opens up to this new thing, and you're like, I understand humans now.
Yeah, now I see the light. And you don't realize that it's talking about you.
Here's the other, because we don't see our blind spots because, we're blind to them, so we don't see our own stuff that we mess up on. But here's the other thing I was thinking. We've been beaten over the head for 12 straight years. Why did you not buy stocks in 2008 or 2009 or 2010 or 2011 or whenever? Everything has been a buying opportunity. So we've all been told, literally every time the U.S. stock market has fallen, it's come back to a new high eventually. It's never not happened before. So do you think people have been beaten over the head enough with this to say, why wouldn't I just keep buying? If stocks are, you don't think that that's giving people too much credit, that they've just been, because I had a few people reply and say, that's kind of what happened to me. Like, I've just heard it enough where stocks for the long term and it's going to come back eventually. So why not put some money to work?
No. Because we're talking about different things. Those are people that are buying core holdings. What we're talking about are people that are gambling.
Yeah. Robinhood had 3 million new accounts this year alone. And that's with having these huge glitches during some of the most volatile trading days, and it hasn't really impacted them at all.
Do you think that once the economy reopens, people go back to work, this is going to drop dramatically? Because I think it will. I don't think it's going to happen all at once. I don't think it's going to happen all at once, but I think it'll die down.
That makes sense. There was nothing else to do or pay attention to. I agree. A lot of it is just people are bored.